Do you feel happy with your fluency in English? Do you ever stop and think about your approach to thinking in English? In today's video, I'm going to share some practical tips for how to start thinking in English to enhance your fluency. Tip number one is to start using one of these. Obviously, you can use an online version, but what I mean is an English to English dictionary. When you encounter a new word in English, look it up in an English to English dictionary rather than immediately translating it into your native language. Read the definition, including synonyms and examples of usage, to get a sense of how the word is used in English. This helps a bit with reducing the habit of translating in your head. Tip number two is related to this process. You've looked up this definition, you've got a sense of the word, write the word down, and if you've got time, create a little bit of a mind map around this word using English that you already know. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do this with every single new word that you encounter. We don't have the time to do that. I know that from my second language. But if this is a word that you think is relevant to you and your life, take this word and explore it a little bit in English. So when you record this word that is important to you, avoid writing down a definition in your native language. Try and keep it all in English as far as possible. You could add, like I said before, synonyms, etc. around the word. You could draw pictures or doodles with the word, but avoid using your native language as far as possible. Try and keep it all in English. You could also brainstorm the word. So write a list of related words that immediately spring into mind once you know what this word means. You could play a word association game with the word. Tip 3 is to get into the habit of using any opportunity you can to think in simple English sentences. You could start by describing your surroundings or your daily activities in English. It can be really simple. I am brushing my teeth. The sky is blue. I'm feeling nervous. Gradually, you'll get used to forming thoughts in English. Don't worry about finding the perfect word to describe your surroundings. Use the English that you already have at your disposal and put it into sentences, put it into thoughts. And remember, it's not about perfection. Nobody can see inside your head and say, you're doing that wrong. My next tip is to immerse yourself in English, to surround yourself with the language. I think the time that I felt that I was speaking Spanish, my second language, most fluently was when I was living in Spain for a short period of time. It got to the point where I was dreaming in Spanish. Now, obviously, you can't just go and live in an English-speaking country, but you can surround yourself with books, with films, with music, and other materials that are all in English. You could change the settings on your phone to English. Anything to immerse yourself in the language. This daily exposure will get you used to the sounds and the rhythm and the structure of the language. My next tip is to invest in lots of post-it notes and start labelling your environment. Initially, when you're starting to learn English, this could be basic vocabulary for objects in your house, but get creative or use groups of words to label your surroundings or even a sentence. My next tip is to engage in self-talk. Have a conversation with yourself. I talk about habit forming a lot, and I think self-talk is a habit that is really useful to get into. Get into the habit of asking yourself every morning when you wake up, how am I feeling? How am I feeling this morning? I've got a lot to do today. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. I should have gone to bed earlier last night. Or it could simply be you ask yourself, how am I feeling this morning? And your answer could be knackered. The purpose here isn't on forming a perfectly constructed sentence in English. It's more about getting into the habit of asking yourself a question in English every morning, in this case, and coming up with a reply to yourself without translating and without overthinking. I'm always singing the praises of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'll put a link down below. Conscious habit forming seems to be a really important part of language learning for busy people who don't have time to sit down and hit the books for an hour every night. My final tip is something that I've spoken about before on this channel, and that's keeping an English journal. Back in the 1990s, a woman called Julia Cameron wrote a book called The Artist's Way, this book here, in which she explores how journaling can be used to unlock creativity. In this book, Cameron proposed a technique she called morning pages, whereby every morning she would write down her thoughts in a stream of consciousness fashion. Stream of consciousness means as ideas randomly pop into your head. And she talks about this as, like I say, a tool for unlocking and creativity. But I think it can also be used as a tool for unlocking English or any second language. Again, I'll put a link below. And I'll also add a link to my website where I've written a blog on journaling in English. So they were my tips for starting to actively think in English. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas and tips about this. If you found today's video useful, then I'd appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up. That really helps me. But also consider subscribing. I post new content on Wednesdays and Sundays. And you can also find more lessons on my website and on my Instagram account. I should also mention that I work with people on a language learning platform called italki, where people come to me to practice their English conversation skills privately on a one-to-one basis. If this is something that you might be interested in, then have a look at the description below. I'll include a link to my profile, but I'll also include a link that gives you $10 US off your first purchase on italki. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.